Hey, folks, welcome to this week's episode of What's Bruin. We are only a day off of schedule, but not the day we thought we would be. Unfortunately, Monday night, someone had some internet issues, which we do apologize for, but I will bring in the Rogers reigning in himself, Dom Tiano. Dom, how are you after your internet issues on Monday?
I'm doing well, Chris. I want to apologize to everybody. I was probably one of the last people on earth that owned a landline phone. And uh, Monday, before we were going to go on, I called Rogers to cancel it and then found out none of my devices I could get onto my Wi-Fi with. So I called them back and they had me do some things and they said, try and open up YouTube. So I did. Well, I opened up the app, which used my data. I said, okay, great, it works. They said, now try your laptop. So I tried my laptop and they had me do a few things because it wouldn't connect. And so they told me it was a laptop problem and I needed a new laptop. So I called them a second time after realizing I couldn't connect to my Wi-Fi through my phone. It was just the app using that. Anyway, when I finally got to the third person, 3.5, 4 hours later, they told me, says, no, they needed to reconfigure your Wi-Fi. And he was on there for about a minute, got it working, and I was able to get on the internet. So my apologies.
You know what? We'll blame Rogers for that one.
Yeah,
It must have been the big buyout of the MLSE.
I was thinking that, that's exactly what it had to be.
They fired so many people so they could make that purchase, and now they fired the good ones. So
Yeah.
we'll blame them and invest in everything, just not the Maple Leafs because that's just funny. Anyways, we've already got a couple of our regulars here. Matrix is in. Kevin is back. I know he had a couple of things going on for a few weeks, so welcome back, Kevin. Um, we have two preseason games to go over. We
Yeah.
have some of training camp, and we even have a roster move to go over.
Yeah.
So, where do you want to start? We can go with the shortest items first or the longest items first.
Wherever you want to start, buddy.
Well,
You
let's
know
start.
me, I don't like agendas. I don't ever want you to send me one. I want it all to flow off the top of my head. So wherever you want to start.
Just to get it out of the way. Let's start with the Bruins sending Loke Johansson back down to juniors.
Well,
Um,
that was a given. That was a given.
to us, yes, but to some of the folks watching, um, just to kind of put a bow on his quote unquote tenure after being drafted, where do you stand on him at this point based on what you've seen?
You saw some flashes of what he can do. He still needs some major adjustment to the North American ice. Um, we spoke about that a couple weeks ago, where he looked terrible in an exhibition game for Moncton. Um, so he's going to get the work in there, but I'm not surprised in the least.
No, I don't think very many people are surprised per se. I think some people liked what they saw from him, which, like you said, he had flashes, he had moments. I liked what I saw from him, given what, like you said, what his circumstances are.
Yep.
He's first time over on the North American ice. There's going to be an adjustment period. He's had minimal time on the ice overall. Um, he was a late draft pick, so already that that's someone who's going to be a couple years away. But the fact that you're already seeing flashes is a positive, and that's what you want in someone that you just took in the fifth round.
Yeah.
Positive building blocks. So with that, other positive building blocks. Game two, definitely much better than game one. So, game one, what did you come out of preseason game one? Kind of where was your head at with some of the guys we saw there?
Well, first of all, the games themselves. We saw uh, contrasting styles. We saw in game one a heavy hitting, hit everything you can game, and in game two we saw a more skill based game rather than the physicality we saw in game one. So there was some contrast in the two. Um, Obviously, if we want to get into individual players, I liked what I saw from Riley Tuft. We've been talking the last couple of weeks that he could potentially push Max Jones.
Yes.
Mm, Um, on the other hand, Mark McLaughlin yesterday, um, not impressed. Uh, Patrick Bruin loves to work hard. Unfortunately, yeah, he scored a goal, but sometimes plays die on his stick.
Yeah.
Uh, Jackson Nelson, I thought looked really good. There's potential there. It's going to take some time. Loved Trevor Kuntar in game one. Loved uh, Riley Duran in game one. Uh,
Yes. I thought they both stood out very well on a positive side there. Farinacci also looked good to me
yeah,
there.
Baranacci looked good in game one. Brett Harrison, you and I have been talking well over a year about what he needs to do, and we didn't see it in game two. So that was very disappointing. Liked what I saw from uh, Kepke on defense. Uh, Really, really surprised by Billy Sweezy. Liked
Had
his game.
was he in the first one too? He was in the first two.
Yeah,
So he's had two really good games.
yeah. But we see what Montgomery and the coaching staff is trying to do. In game one, we saw a potential pairing of a Peak and Lori, who looked good.
They both looked good in
They
my
both look good. And
yep.
then last night we saw another potential pairing in Lindholm and Carlo, and they look to have picked up where they left off. And Thursday night, it sounds like we're going to see Zadorov and McAvoy. Um, so we're seeing what they want to do there. But I know everybody wants to talk about the three kids: Matthew Patra, Georgi Merkulov, and Fabian Lysell.
And before we do that, I got to pull up Court's comment here. I like it here too. He says, like the stream, please. Get the stream out there, share it, like it, comment on it as well. We will pull up your comments. We want to know what you guys thought of these people, of these players. Yes, Ed Court points out we should be seeing Pasternak as well soon in, I believe, this next game coming up. He should see some time on ice as well. Before, like you said, before we dive into those big three, Lysell, Merkulov, and Poitras, though, I did also like the physicality that I saw from Kostelik.
Yes.
And
He had a really, really good game one. It's just he took two bad penalties, which is, I don't want to say his motto, but he's known for taking some bad penalties. So
yeah,
hopefully they can work that out of his game.
yeah, I think they can. I think he's in an organization that can help with that kind of thing. I also liked what I saw from Corpusalo. Not a lot of shots, obviously, but he was in good positioning for the ones he did see.
Yeah. I, you know, he had what, 7 shots against?
Yep, he was 7 for 7 on shots against, and then
I didn't see any issues in it, but he really didn't have a whole lot of tests. But
the biggest test he had was that first shot, that breakaway, which he
yeah,
handled well, put it right in the corner, which was great. DiPietro has also, yeah, as Court says, he took more shots in warm up.
yeah, I thought his movement was good. He looked poised. He looked to be in position. He got to his posts on time. I think he was a little low when he was in the VH, leaving that spot open between the head and the post and the shoulder. Um, but those are easily fixable things that Bob Essenza can work with him on. Um,
I
when he
really,
had to, he got his paddle down flat on the ice to take away the 5 hole. A lot of the little things were there, but there was some that I'm sure Bob is going to make the adjustments on.
yeah, and some of that too is probably because he hasn't played an on ice game for quite some time, few
Right.
months. So, like it's just kind of getting the bugs worked out. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing what he has in game 2 for his next outing. DiPietro, I thought has looked really well, really
Well,
good.
he let in one bad goal.
Bad shot, yes, but he bounced back from it.
DiPietro is very athletic. This is a guy who will do anything to stop a puck. Um, I thought his rebound control was a little loose in game 1. Um, Bussy's was just terrible,
Yeah,
terrible. Um,
right now DiPietro I think is ahead of Bussy. Just based, obviously we're fucking 2 games in, so it's
yeah.
not the end of the world. I'm just saying in the bubble that we're in right now, DiPietro I think has the lead over Bussy to be that number 2, but it can all change in their next.
Oh, it can change overnight.
Yeah.
But there's one thing I want to address here, and that's when it comes to Corpusalo. A lot of people say, if Bob Essenza is so great, why did they need a $3 million backup? Why not just put Bussy in there and let Essenza work his magic with Bussy? It doesn't always work that way. You've got to see something in the goaltender to say, hey, okay, the tools are there. I can fine tune them and adjust them and get them to that point, which I'm told is why they didn't sign Reed Dick, because Bob or Mike Dunham didn't think there was enough there that they could work with him to get him to the level that they needed to be. So it's not just as easy as bringing in any scrub and saying, let Bob work his magic. Um, there's got to be something there for them to work with.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people lose sight over what Jonas Corposalo has actually accomplished in his NHL career. Just because he came back in the Allmark deal, people love Swayman so much, or they did. Who knows where that's going to go? But I think people have just focused solely on what happened last year in Ottawa, that they're just not looking at what he actually brings to the table. I thought his outing was solid and a good building block, a solid block to build off of going forward. And then was there? I'm just trying to look at my notes here if there's anybody. Oh, Vinny Lettieri also looked good in the first game as well. Obviously, not someone who's going to be making a push for the NHL lineup right away, but I would definitely see him getting maybe a call up late in the year as a reward kind of a thing.
No, the guys they really want to get looks at were the guys that were in both games.
Oh yeah,
I'm surprised Duran and Kuntar weren't in for the second game.
I
Um,
think that's more about the rest of the roster decisions than anything. They
yeah,
know they're likely going to end up in Providence. That as good as Kuntar looked in that first game, I think there's still stuff in his game to round out that will happen in the American Hockey League, and that's not a
hmm
bad thing. I don't want to say we don't need him on the roster right now, but there are other players who can bring what he brings who also have a veteran mentality and veteran experience.
yeah.
So with that, real quick, Kevin chimes in. He says, Corpus, I think, was pretty solid. His first shot being kind of the breakaway, huge save, and he stood tall. let's see. Yeah, he also mentioned, since we were talking last night when Lysell made that shot and got that goal, um, you know, the difference for Lysell between game one and game two was almost night and day from what I saw. Now, that being said, as Matrix points out here, that one goal isn't going to define his camp. Now, he says he's still not sold, and I don't know how sold I am on Lysell at the moment, but the growth from game one to game two, he's talked about it in some media availability. There was a little bit of a shift in mindset, had some conversations specifically with Coach Ryan Mougenel. Where do you stand on that difference from game one to game two in Fabian Lysell?
Again, two contrasting games, very, very different in style. And game one didn't suit Lysell's style. Um, Merkulov fared a little bit better in game one, not much. But here's two guys that have shown have no issue or no problems gaining the offensive blue line. And in game one, it's like they ran into a wall every time they hit the opposition blue line. They couldn't, if their life depended on it, could not gain the zone. Game two, different thing, totally different. Again, Washington wasn't as physical as the Rangers were. They weren't standing up at the blue line. They weren't hitting everything that came at them. Um, but the Rangers were. And it's, excuse me, something that both of them are going to have to figure out. They're going to have to figure out a way through it. And, hopefully they'll be in for a third game Thursday night. And uh,
I think both of them are going to get. I don't want to say as many games as possible, but they're going to probably get a good 3, 4, 5 game run here to see where they're at. I think because I think it does come down to them. Blue Jays pops in who makes the team out of Kastelic, Jones, Kuntar, and Duran. Right now, the only two I think are going to make the team are Kastelic and Jones. I think both Duran and Kuntar end up down in Providence.
yeah, and we haven't seen Jones yet, so we can't say for sure. But
I based off,
yeah,
I've been saying that for weeks now.
yeah.
So let's see. Matrix also says that Poitras is a shoo-in for the main roster. He played great on both ends of the ice.
Well, I wouldn't say that either.
Court says Poitras, I think, is on the roster, and Merkulov and Lysell need to have a couple of good games. Otherwise, they will start in Providence. And then David adds specifically on Poitras. He likes the play of Poitras and Merkulov. Lysell not ready, in his opinion. Thoughts on Sweezy, who we did touch on briefly. Sweezy has played very, very well. And I think is positioning himself in a good position for an eighth defenseman role. Like a first call up on D. If he keeps this up, he could be that guy that gets called up if there's an injury that makes Wotherspoon have to be full time for a little while.
Okay, can I go back now?
Absolutely.
So Poitras is not a lock to make the roster. He's not. I will say this: the media has got it totally wrong about how he's played right wing. He didn't get moved to center until his draft year. The fact is that he played right wing through his draft year. It wasn't until the Guelph Storm traded Danny Zilkin partway through the season that he got moved to center and exploded. That was in the year after his draft, not the year of his draft. Okay, take it from me. I've watched him for years. There are parts of his game last night that we're missing. And you know, I will say he's gotten stronger on faceoffs, the added strength. We talked about it a year ago that once he adds muscle, he's going to be fine on faceoffs. But there are things I saw him do last night that shows me there is some hesitation in his game. Again, I've watched him for years, so I know him a little bit better. Maybe it was first game jitters, first game rust, whatever it is, but I'm not going to base it off of one game. I'm just saying to you, he's not a lock to make the roster at this point.
I don't think anybody's a lock. I think everybody with an 8-game stretch in the preseason, people have plenty of opportunity to play themselves out of a role. People have plenty of opportunity to play themselves into a role. There was a particular play. I know Kevin is wanting me to share more of our conversation last night, and I'm sure we'll touch on a lot of it at some point. As far as Poitras did have the penalty kill play down low later in the game when he held it against the boards, and like that was just something that really showed where his hockey IQ sits. So I do think that Poitras is a favorite to make the roster, but like you said, as a lock, I think there's plenty of things. As Court says, pizza bet says he makes the team. Court, I'm not going to take that bet because I do think he makes the team, but I don't think you can lock him in. One of the things that Kevin and I were talking about though is I wonder. This was a thought that I had. I wonder if the team was looking at Poitras as potentially being the favorite for the right wing spot on that second line, allowing for Merkulov, Lysell to kind of fight their way into the lineup. And then, because I've heard some things, and I don't know what you have as far as insight. Maybe Court has something he can share. But I've heard a few things that lead me to believe that the team actually does want to sign Tyler Johnson to a contract, but he's on the PTO right now, similar to how Max Pacioretty is on the PTO for the Maple Leafs. They have a few other contract things to sort out before they know what they have available to sign him to.
I hope not. I hope they didn't bring him in on a PTO with the intention of signing him.
Have you not seen anything from his game that you could build off of in that one game?
I saw an excellent screen on the Lysell goal. Now, if you go back to practices last week, okay, all this talk about Lysell not being given time with NHL players. Through practices, he was mostly with Charlie Coyle and Tyler Johnson. Tyler Johnson was there as the veteran NHLer in Brad Marchand's spot. Had Brad Marchand been healthy, Lysell would have been with Coyle and Marchand. Okay. The other argument is, and I talk to coaches regularly, like at least 5 times a week. And when you talk about a player not put in a position to succeed because he's playing with lesser players, they're not putting them there to look at them to go out and score 3-4 goals in a game. They're looking what they want to see with Lysell playing with 2 AHL scrubs is they want to see A, effort, B, his willingness to fight through it, and C, to drive that line. As bad as they may be as a trio, those are the 3 things they're looking for. They're not looking for production.
Yeah, the line drive, that's the thing that we're always looking for.
Right.
And that's what people build their lines around. Like, Pasternak's the line driver on the top line. Now you have great pieces around him, but he is the driver of that line. Brad Marchand's the driver of the second line. However, if Lysell can drive the line at times, that's what you're looking for.
Right. And you go back to Merkulov last year. Everybody's complaining that he wasn't given a great chance. Well, he played the majority of his time with JBR and Trent Frederick. Okay. He spent 8 minutes with Jacob Lauko and Oscar Steen on the fourth line in game four. Okay. To say he wasn't given a chance, that goal he set up Justin Brazeau for last night, that's JVR. That's who he played with last year. So don't give it. I'm tired of hearing this. He wasn't given a chance. He was
Question.
there to replace Matthew Patra, and he failed. And he
Right.
was given legitimate NHL players to play with.
I agree. I think he had a good opportunity. Was it the best opportunity? That's debatable. It was a 4-game sample, and what was that he just wasn't ready, and that's okay. Now he makes that play last night that sets up the Brazeau goal, and in my opinion, that shows some growth in his game. Does that mean he's going to make the roster? Who the hell knows? He's got to do that more.
Right.
Um,
Isn't
yeah,
that Brazeau goal like JVR for the last 15 years? Yeah. So you're telling me Merkulov didn't play with NHL players last year?
I I'm not the one telling you that, but anyway,
No, I'm not saying you specifically. You know what I'm saying.
Jason wants to know what our thoughts are on Tufty and Brazeau specifically. Since we've been talking about Brazeau, um, I'll let you go first.
Like I said, I like Tufty the last two games, and I've been saying it for a few weeks now. Tufty is there to push Max Jones. One of them, likely Tufty, will end up in the American Hockey League.
Yeah, but he's again. I like what I've seen from him. So we have a minimal sample size, so we have to continue to remind people of that minimal sample size. But he's done well. Brazeau, same thing. Um, I gotta dig more into seeing him on the board battles and winning puck battles and puck races and stuff like that. But he looks better. Does he look a little faster to you too?
I will say this: Brazil looks leaner. He's made some strides in his skating. Um, what I noticed last night, he's using crossovers more to to get a quicker step on the go rather than just straight line. So he's utilizing crossovers more to his benefit. Um, and I think there was one sequence there in the second period where he came in off the right wing wall. His edges look a lot stronger, a lot stronger. And I think you and I have talked this several times where there were times he was knocked off the puck rather easily in the playoffs. And I think it's not that he doesn't have the strength, he didn't have the strength in his edges. And I think that he's improved his skating. He's worked on it.
Yeah, and again, as Kevin says, he looks a little bit faster. I like what I saw from him. Again, does that outdo all of the board battles he lost last year in the playoffs? No. It's a good building block. It's a fresh season. It's a fresh year. I'm willing to look at it and say, where are you now? But also, is someone else better? Uh, Good building block. So, I know I keep using that phrase, but that's all we can look for right now. We've had 2 preseason games. Does that mean I've changed my mind and think he's going to make this roster? I don't know. Again, we still haven't seen Max Jones. We haven't even seen Elias Lindholm on the ice. Pasternak. Like, there's a lot of guys we haven't seen yet. So I will be looking forward to seeing how they continue to move guys like Liesel and Merkulov and Poitras up and down the lineup with some of these other guys, just because I think it will give you an idea of some of what they're looking for out of some of them.
That fourth line job is going to be a battle. There is going to be a battle there. I will say this: there's more people battling for that fourth line, and we're talking legitimate players. There's more people battling for that, in my opinion, than there is second line right wing.
So who do you think is battling for the second right wing spot at this point?
At this point now, I would have to say it's between Patra and Lysell.
I think that's where they're at too. I think at the moment, Poitras has the slight edge, but that can go quickly. I mean, Lysell had a great game yesterday. I will say, Court says, I like Merkulov's game. He needs to learn how to win a face-off. Yesterday they were.
He did pretty good in faceoffs yesterday.
I was saying as a team overall they didn't do well, but I don't think he was the main cause of that either.
No, if Patra gets the second line right wing spot, there's an opening for Merkulov then, either 3C or 3 left wing.
Yeah, and we very well could see that, and that's why I'm kind of glad that Johnson is on a PTO, because as a PTO player, one, he can get an offer from somebody else, so that's fine. But he can come in and push, and if he ends up pushing a guy like Merkulov into that third line center role, then I like that. Court says thoughts on Marchand's comments today were telling. I don't know if I have to go back and look. I literally got home, sat down on my computer, started doing something else for a different pod, and then jumped on here. So I haven't had a chance.
Basically, what he said was that the kids, meaning Lysell and Merkulov, have a long way to go. And Geeky was there at practice today on the right wing with Coyle and Marchand, and Marchand really likes playing with Geeky and thinks he's going to take another step. That's the gist of what he said. Now,
okay, so that explains Mike's comment. Not be surprised that Geeky gets a look at second line.
I will say this about Brad Marchand, and I love Brad Marchand. He learned from two of the best in Zdeno Chara and Patrice Bergeron on how to lead. And what he's done is incorporated a little bit of himself and is doing it his own way. If Bruce Cassidy had made those comments that Marchand made today, Bruce Cassidy would have been driven out of town. Okay?
Yes, he would have.
Brad Marchand makes the comments, and he's adored. Okay? Brad Marchand is sending a message in his own subtle way through the media at the players involved. And he's not doing it like Zdeno Chara would have done or like Patrice Bergeron would have done. But he thinks he's lighting a fire under them. Now, I want to see if it works.
Yeah, absolutely. But he's also not wrong. I think
no, he's not wrong, but that's not the point. The point is what he said and how he did it.
Yeah, it's definitely a way to try to push those guys.
Yeah.
Lysell, Merkulov, even Poitras a little bit. And I think it's something that will get under at least Poitras' skin.
Not only that, it gives Geeky some confidence.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Marchand pushed a lot of buttons in that 3 minutes he was in front of the microphone. Pushed a lot of buttons. Let's see who reacts.
Absolutely. And David mentions that it was a post-game interview that Justin Brazeau mentioned that it was the best summer of work he's had. And, it's I really hope so. I'm not rooting for him not to make the team. I hope I've made that clear. Um, he's certainly someone who can help. I mean, he does have a great finish. But, he can find the back of the net. So hopefully it's something that translates, really. As Kevin says, if Brazeau can get his skating figured out, he can pretty much be a good option for this team moving forward. I think a great option, third line, fourth line kind of player. Court says that he would adore Butch if he had made those comments.
So would I, Court. So would I. But, many in the fan base would not.
Matrix also mentioned that Marchand also had a lot of praise for Zadorov as well. So
yeah, so he knows how to push buttons. Like I said, he learned from two of the best. He's just going about it in a different way than the two previous leaders would have.
Yeah, I feel like their shots they would have their comments would have been, we all need to keep working, something along those lines. Whereas Marchand was, granted, I don't know all the context of the questions, but he may have been specifically asked about them. But yeah, like you said, he's called them out. Let's see how they react.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like this not knowing the roster until the couple hours before the game, but I wouldn't be surprised if the team is still trying to sort it out right now for the next game anyway. So,
does anyone know if Jackson Edward was on the ice today? Just let us know in the comment section, because I've been out of the loop most of the day, so I'm not sure if he was.
I haven't heard that he was. I also haven't heard that he's been on the ice. I haven't heard him being on the ice in a couple days. So, but Mike, that brings up a good question that Mike has. Any concern about the Elias Lindholm absence? Does he have a recent injury history?
Real
quick, Court says, I'm wondering if that was to Mike's question or if that was to Jackson Edward being on the ice. Court, just let us know.
I'm not worried about it. They're just taking, and the fact that his wife is due to have a baby any day now is, they're probably saying, let's not injure it any further. Just take the time, have the baby, and get to 100%.
Yeah, Elias Lindholm.
I'm not worried.
Yeah, he's a veteran. He doesn't need more than one, maybe two preseason games to really fully get back up to speed, as long as he can get out on the ice and skate a little bit. So Court does say that Jackson Edward was on the ice. He led the stretch. Matrix is saying he was wearing a red no-contact jersey.
I was kind of hoping we'd see him against the Rangers tomorrow.
That would add to the physicality.
Yeah, we'd probably see another fight. So... yeah, it's too bad. Oh, well.
Tufty might be able to handle that one. Sweezy maybe takes over for that one a little bit. So, I mean, I like what we saw from Lohrei, Wotherspoon, and Peak in that first game. I think all of them looked pretty ready to go. Oh, wait, here we go. Monty said that, according to Court, Monty said that Lindholm will be back next week at the latest. So...
yeah, I think he said something about anybody who is not on the ice this week will be next week. Something to that effect.
Okay. So now the big question is, we've got another game coming up. What, tomorrow? I don't even know what tomorrow
Thursday
looks like.
In New York.
A big question is what are we looking for here? We know... Court said he's shaking his head at you. That was a while ago, though.
I know, but I want to know what he was shaking his... Oh, well. Before we go any further, just to let everybody know, so on Sunday's Prospects show, we have Josh Bell from McKean's will be joining us. He's the director of video scouting from McKean's. They just released their Boston Bruins prospect rankings less than 2 weeks ago. So he's going to jump on Sunday at 6:30 to talk to us about that. So mark that on your calendars, folks.
That's going to be
sorry, Chris. I had to get that in there.
glad you did. We also have another exciting announcement coming up as well for all of our loyal fans and listeners out there as well. But Mike has a great question. And you obviously can attest to a lot of the different functionalities and stuff. He wants to know, are there additional coaches at training camp because they're doing two-a-days?
Oh yeah, they'll have all the skills coaches are there. Skills and skating coaches. I'm pretty sure Adam McQuaid is there. Um, as for who else, I'm not sure. I believe Ryan Mujanel is also there,
I was gonna say,
if I'm not mistaken.
I'm sure a lot more of the coaches are, because they're all together right now, players and coaches all together. And then once they start seeing some cuts go to Providence, which there was a question back here. Matrix asked it, when should we see player cuts at camp? Which we already saw one, Loke Johansson. But when would you say we should start to see the large majority of players start to get trimmed down?
I say we'll see some cuts Friday or Saturday.
Now, with that in mind, with Saturday, Brandon wants to know about the goaltending. Would you go Bussy and DiPietro for Thursday's game and possibly give Corpusalo a full game on Saturday?
I would, if it were me, I would give Corpusalo half a game and Bussy the other half on Thursday.
I want to see how Bussy bounces back.
Yep.
And I
You
want
got
to
it. You have to see.
Yeah, and I want to see, would you start Corpusalo or would you start Bussy? Or does that
I
not
would.
really
It does matter because what we saw is DiPietro had to go in cold 2 games in a row. I would start Bussy and then put Corpusalo in for the second half. Give Corpusalo a full start. What do they play again? Saturday and then Tuesday again?
I think so, yeah, because I'm pretty sure it messes up
That's
the schedule again.
that's when I would give Corpusalo the full start.
That
Because
Tuesday.
let's face it, if something happens between the Bruins and Swayman, they got to get Swayman in there. So you don't want Corpusalo sitting now, and then let's say Saturday, all of a sudden you've got Swayman under contract, and now you got to get them both in.
Right. Right. And we will circle back. You mentioned the one player that isn't a player at the moment for us. We will circle back. But it's a great way to put it. I don't disagree with that at all. And the fact that you've seen DiPietro come in cold both times, I do think that yes, he had that one softy goal, but overall, the fact that he's come in cold, I think has bode well for him. I would be I would be excited to see what Bussy does coming out of the gate, getting the start, kind of having the starter's mentality, seeing if, having the warm up of a starter changes kind of the way things go for him throughout the course of the game.
Not only that, if Corpusalo is going to be the backup, okay, there's going to be a couple of times through the season he's going to have to come in relief.
Yeah,
It's
so you can see what he can do in that situation too.
you want to put him in that situation and see how he reacts.
I get the twofer and doing it that way.
Yeah, the thought process is there's a lot that goes into the thought process on what you want to do with your goalies at camp. And not to take anything away from anybody, but I'm sure that the majority of people that are listening wouldn't have thought of that. That, hey, he's a backup. We need to see how he reacts coming in cold. If Bussy wins the job, you want to see it from him as well.
Absolutely. And one other name before we jump over to Swayman real quick and then jump back, but one other name too is there was a lot of overreaction, in my opinion, but discourse around the PTO signing of Casimir Kaskasuo. What were your thoughts on that? Me personally, I looked at that as going. They expected a certain number of goalie bodies in camp. They needed another one. I did a little bit of research actually before I thought about it. Um, his agent is the same as Brandon Bussey's agent, so there's a relationship there, and it just made sense. Now, could he show you something? Sure. If you don't have a deal done with Swayman and you feel like he showed you enough to may offer him a contract, then there's an option there. But I mean, is it anything more than that in your eyes?
No, they needed a body, and they, if something that were to happen, where Swayman starts to miss real games, or they lose a goaltender to waivers, he's somebody they can sign to an AHL contract. It's nothing more than that.
You know how Boston fans overreact. So just wanted to get that out there because they'll listen to you more than me anyway. But with Swayman, you mentioned him. Have you heard
I'm sorry
anything?
I did.
I'm gonna just leave it at have you heard anything new or is it still radio silence from what you're hearing?
So Pierre LeBrun today, and you can always believe what Pierre LeBrun has to say, is that the latest, he did some checking on Tuesday, which was yesterday, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And he was told from both sides that it's status quo and that Jeremy Swayman is looking for an 8-year deal and the Bruins want an 8-year deal as well. That's the latest from Pierre LeBrun. And the talks are ongoing, which goes totally against what the spit up chicklets, what's it called? The spit on me chicklets?
Spit up on yourself as
Or spit up on yourself chicklets podcast says. So you can believe Pierre LeBrun.
I I want to say I want to put it out there for folks too because you and I had a good laugh. I mentioned it to you the fact that they are one of them is doubling down and all this other stuff. Um, and as you put it, controversy sells. They're getting clicks, they're getting listens.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's literally the biggest story in the NHL right now.
Actually,
That
it's not anymore.
well,
It's Shesterkin is now the number one
I was gonna say
talk.
the Shesterkin comments started coming out, but it's still part of the biggest story in the NHL. He's the he's the biggest restricted free agent who hasn't signed yet, and it's an original six franchise. It's the Boston media. Things are going to go viral. It's going to create. It's going to
Let me
create views.
let me see if I can paraphrase what Pierre LeBrun had to say. The Rangers are willing to go to 10.5 million with Shesterkin. He's hearing that Shesterkin wants to reset the goalie market. Okay, and that they know the cap's going up, and he could be looking at 12.5 million. But the Rangers are willing, according to Pierre LeBrun, go 10.5 million. Swayman also wants to reset the goalie market, but as LeBrun says, Swayman doesn't have the leverage that Shesterkin has. He's not
Right.
even close to the leverage that Shesterkin has.
And as Pierre Maguire said on his show, good luck to both of them.
I think Shesterkin will get it.
I think
Shesterkin will. Let's not forget, Carey Price is still being paid. Shesterkin, when he signs his deal, will be the highest paid goaltender.
Yeah, I think I do. I don't know if he gets quite to 12 and a half, but they might settle on like an 11, 11.2. And And I mean, his deal also won't start until after this season. Swayman
Right.
needs a deal now. Mike has a good question as far as, because we all remember Don Sweeney throwing the December 1st deadline out there. What happens to Swayman if his contract is not signed by December 1st? Will he still have RFA status?
Yeah. Yeah. Swayman isn't a UFA till the summer of 2026.
And that's why
If I'm
they don't want to do a 2-year bridge deal.
right.
Because a 2-year, like you're more, I truly think at this point you're more likely to see a 1-year bridge deal than a 2 or a 3 or a 4-year bridge deal. I think you're going to see either a
And
deal or a 1-year, kick the can down the road, pay him six
they're
and a half.
not doing a 1-year deal. They're
I don't
not.
think so either.
It's not happening. And it's contrary to everything you hear out there. One of the reasons why the Bruins didn't elect, or the biggest reason why the Bruins didn't elect to take Jeremy Swayman to arbitration is because Swayman could have elected 2-year contract then and then walked as an unrestricted free agent.
Which they did.
The number one reason why the Bruins didn't file.
Which makes total sense, because if you, especially considering the fact that we know how unhappy he was with the situation last year in arbitration. Now, people also want to say, well, last year they should have done a 2-year contract in arbitration instead of a 1-year. Now, that would have affected how much he was awarded in the arbitration hearing, correct?
No.
They would have just the same amount, the same AAV.
It would have been the same thing. It's just the Bruins didn't want to do that because they wanted to show good faith.
Well, that too.
And get to negotiate. The only reason why they didn't go 2 years.
All right. Now
did it backfire? That's not up to me to decide whether it backfired or not.
I don't think we'll know if it quote unquote backfired until we see what the contract is.
Yeah, you got to see the results.
So, but David, since we brought it up, hypothetical, this is the other extreme part of it. There are people out there saying, F it, just trade the guy, he wants too much. Would you consider Swayman trading him away? Now, in this particular hypothetical, David is saying someone like John Gibson in a return.
No.
I wouldn't look at that unless things absolutely blew up between Swayman's age, but like unless both parties literally weren't talking and their last things to each other were F you, there's no reason to go down a trade route.
No. And to me, when I look at trading Swayman, it's okay. Let's say you're Anaheim, Chris. Okay. What are you looking to sign him for?
Oh, that's just it. Why am I going to trade for him? If I'm Anaheim, why am I trading for him if he's still unsigned? Because now you've taken your problem and given it to me.
Yeah, but let's say
for a late round pick.
No, let's say I give you permission to talk to him. What are you signing him for?
Well, it would still have to be an 8-year deal.
Give me an AAV. Give me an A. Are you signing him for 5 or are you signing him for 10?
The one everybody wants is 8x8.
Okay.
So let's say would you do the 8x8?
So in theory, if you signed him to an offer sheet, that's 4 first-round draft picks. Why would I trade him to you for John Gibson?
I agree. Bear Force jumping in the comments. Let me get that one pulled up here. We would need more than Gibson in return. David says that the Ducks have $20 million in cap space. But yeah, we would need a lot more than Gibson in return. Again, like you said, it'd be 4 first-round draft picks. That's your starting trade point.
No, that's in an offer sheet. So if you signed him to 8x8 in an offer sheet, it's 4 first-round draft picks.
David's saying 11. So now, if I'm the Duck, David, just in your scenario, Not only am I committing $88 million to a goaltender who's never started more than 45 games in a regular season, I'm also giving up the value of trading for him, which, to your point, Dom, on an offer sheet is 4 first-round draft picks. If I'm Boston, I'm not. If you tell me that you're willing to give him that $88 million contract, I'm going to say, hand me the 4 draft picks. Do it as an offer sheet because I don't feel like negotiating a trade with you at that point.
Yeah.
Because in order for you to beat 4 first-round draft picks, you're not going to want to sign the $88 million contract. It's just too much. Swayman signs with Boston or he sits out a year. That's his play right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the Ducks. So what?
Different GM there now than you're used to, David.
Yeah, like Pat Verbeek is not stupid. He knows what he's doing over there. And just because they're a different team is not a reason why they're going to pull the trigger. I don't think there's a GM in the league who would pull the trigger on that deal. Blindly sign an $88 million check. It's easy for us sitting here at home going, well, it's not my money. I wish I had $88 million. If anybody in the comments has $88 million, speak up. Let me know if you would sign that contract over to Jeremy Swayman, if you would pay him $88 million.
I don't think there's a GM in the league that would.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It is Pat Verbeek, yes. And they are in the process of a deep rebuild. If you look at some of the players on their roster, I know it's tough because we're East Coast and they're West Coast. But if you look at some of the young, talented players on their roster, Troy Terry's only 27. Trevor Zegras is still only 23. Strome is only 31. Fabry's 28. Vetrano's 30. And that doesn't include their recent acquisitions and draft picks like Carter Gauthier, Leo Carlson, Mason McTavish. They're building their defense out. Owen Zellweger, I think, is going to start this year in the NHL potentially. Mintyukov, like this team has extremely high talented young players.
Mm-hmm.
Matrix, if you've got he says he got $88.
Oh.
We'll start that as a GoFundMe to try and pay Swayman that. Yeah, they signed Zegras. Yeah, they signed Zegras before. If I'm not mistaken, that was not a Pat Verbeek signing. Trevor Zegras.
I don't think it was.
Last. What about last, David? The names the bigger names that I mentioned, Owen Zellweger, Mintyukov, 21, 20. All right. These aren't guys. Who was the one they just got this year? Beckett was a Seneke.
Yeah.
Was that a draft pick? Like these are foundational pieces who are not even able to legally drink in the United States, most of them. Yes, they're going to be finishing last. That's what happens when you're building from the bottom. This is the rebuild. The Ducks are going through, and you can also throw teams like Detroit and Buffalo and Montreal. That's truly bottoming out. And that's what people have rooted for Don Sweeney to do, and he hasn't done it. Look at those teams and tell me you want to be those teams before you tell me that you want them to go into a full-blown rebuild.
I haven't done it.
I don't want him to do it either. I love the job that Don is doing.
They haven't done it in the cap era.
Yes, David. Over. I don't think it's clicking. I'm going to move on. Mike says, don't see any benefit for Swayman to sit out a year. I guess the offer from the Bruins would go down when they circle back in the offseason if he sits out. Absolutely. If you're the Bruins right now, What is, Dom, just hypothetically, what's your number for Swayman? Just throw an AAV out there.
Well, it depends on term.
Let's say it's the 8 years.
8.5.
Okay. If he says, I want more, and I'm not coming off of that, I'm going to sit out the year.
Okay.
Comes back to you next year, I want my 8-year contract. Are you still offering him 8.25 or 8.5?
Yeah.
Even
Because the
though
cap's gone up.
Okay, fair enough. You don't, but will he want more if the cap goes up?
Well, it becomes a negotiation all over again. If
Exactly.
if he sits out the year and I get to the conference finals or the Stanley Cup finals, I can look at him and say, "Hey, you know what? Sit out another year."
See what happens. Yeah. Now, if you bottom out and you finish dead last, like the Ducks over the last 5 years, as David has pointed
Different
out,
story.
different
Different
story.
story. But
Don't
there's
throw-
there's there's so much that affects the decision making. But if I've gone to the Stanley Cup or even the conference finals, and he sat out a year, and he come back demanding more, say no, our $8.5 million per year contract still on the table. Well, no, the cap went up. I want more. Okay, sit out another year. Now you've lost $16 million.
Yep. Bear Force says if Swayman does not sign this year, is he a free agent? An unrestricted
2026.
2026 is the year. So he's got 2 years that he'll have to sit out. Matrix throws in a number, 7 years at 7.85. Now, I'm guessing Matrix, where you're coming in with that number, is kind of what Detroit did, where they gave Moritz Seider 8 years, I believe, and then it was Lucas Raymond 7 years. I could have them mixed up.
I think it's the other way around.
Might have been the other way around. They wanted to keep I think it is the other way around now that I say it. They wanted to keep the AAV under Dylan Larkin. Yes, it was Seider because he wanted an 8-year contract, but he was going to be like $250,000 over on that 8 years. So they cut a year off and they shaved a little off the AAV. Is that something, that you would consider going to a 7 on each side?
Everything's on the table.
I think so.
Everything.
Now
The only thing that's not is a 1 or 2 year contract.
David saying Swayman should drop the I want to Bruin. Why? He wants to be here. He's not lying about that. There's nothing, just because he wants to get paid what he feels he's worth, that does not indicate he doesn't want to be a Boston Bruin.
Well, that's just it. And here's the problem, because everybody talks about comparables. Jeremy Swayman doesn't want to get paid what he's worth. Jeremy Swayman, or should I say Lewis Gross, wants Jeremy Swayman to be paid what they think he's going to be worth.
Yes. Let me rephrase. I agree. Yes, yeah. I should have worded
because everybody talks comparables. There's no comparables here. Jeremy Swayman is not wanting to be paid like his comparables at his stage of his career are or were paid. He wants to be paid on future performance. That's why I've been saying for months there is no comparable.
I believe the way an agent put it to you was they'd be a moron if they tried to use comparables.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I'm trying to pull it up real quick, but yeah, Curious Browser says, points out Don Sweeney's comment. I think we'll find a landing spot before December 1. What a curious statement. You mentioned earlier how Brad Marchand has a way about his communication.
Yep. And Don Sweeney's the same way.
I was just going to say Don Sweeney had the exact same thing. And I also think part of that was a message to the media of shut up about it. December 1st is the deadline. that you have to worry about. We'll worry about our internal deadlines. That's not for you guys to give a shit about. And
Basically, Sweeney was upset at the Spit Upon Yourselves podcast. And
told
he
everyone,
just said, December 1st is the date. It'll be done before December 1st.
which if it's not done by then, well then we have a different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yes,
trying.
it's the same agent as Nylander.
Yeah, I was just gonna pull up Steve's question. Yep, because Nylander took it down to the deadline, and then
Nylander told his agent that morning, get the deal done.
right, he stepped in himself and said, "Get the deal done." Now, basically, so I want to put it in a little bit of a perspective for people because like you said, there are no comparables, and that's 1,000% correct. The only player who statistically, and I want to make that clear, statistically, and I'm talking goals against average and save percentage and age wise, comes even close to where Swayman is right now would have been when Andre Vasilevsky signed his $9.5 million contract back in 2020, 2021. However, at that point, he had already been a Vezina winner.
So he's not a comparable then. He's not a comparable.
Right. No, that's my point.
Because Swayman's never even been a finalist for a Vezina.
Right.
So
And Vasilevsky had 4 top 3 finishes, including a finalist win and 2
okay, so he's not a comparable. So 9.5 is out the window.
absolutely. Oh, and he had the Conn Smythe too.
Doesn't matter. He's not a comparable. Soon as you said Vezina finalist, he didn't even have to win it. Soon as you said Vezina finalist, not a comparable.
I
Not.
agree. That's the point I'm trying to
Not
make.
on the same boat.
That's the person that he's trying to get paid like, even though he's played.
Okay, but Chris, I know I keep telling you controversy sells, and it does. It really does. It's what keeps fans interested. I've been saying forever there is no comparable, and you're trying to find a comparable.
No,
I know you want. I know you want to create controversy because it sells, but there is no comparable.
I'm trying to point out the ridiculousness in trying to find a comparable.
No, because you started out with the closest you could find comparable is, but it's not even close.
I said would be.
Not even close.
And
There is no comparable for Jeremy Swayman.
well,
No comparable.
people like Feisty Dom. Let's see. Brandon.
Did you see me wink at you?
Brandon has a question here. He says, what is the maximum that he can be offered in bonuses in his contract? Can the Bruins find a way to pay him his money and limit the cap figure?
None. The only bonuses he can get is signing bonuses,
which would equate to lockout protection.
Right.
That's what we mean when we say lockout protection. It means the money comes in as a signing bonus because it's guaranteed, as opposed to salary, which would get paid out or not paid out in the case of a lockout. Bruins Meat says Soros would have been the closest in comparison, but not really, because if you look back at Soros, by the time he was Swayman's age, he didn't have nearly the number of starts under his belt. So he's not even a good comparison either. Mike says, considering their division, what place do Bruins forward group rank, defense group rank, and then goaltending group rank compared to the other 7 teams?
In their division?
Yeah, let's keep it with the division. Keep it a little shorter of a
defense. Take. They rank number 1.
Agreed.
Okay. Goaltending with Swayman under contract. Number 3. I would put Tampa above. and I would put Florida above.
Yeah, I think the tandem of Bobrovsky and Knight would prove to be overall better than Swayman and Corpusalo. I would agree with that.
Um, Forwards, I would put. Oh, that's a tough one.
I
Fourth,
I was gonna say above them, you got to start with Toronto.
yeah, your Toronto, Florida. Um, I mean, you don't want to bet against Kucherov and Point, but what is there after that,
That's
right?
my question. Yeah,
Um,
and we're talking the whole
maybe,
forward depth.
yeah,
Maybe third.
maybe third.
I mean, because at that point you're talking about putting Buffalo or Ottawa up there, and they're just not proven enough. But there's some high end skill in those lineups.
Yeah.
So
So
I,
third. I would say third.
I'd probably go third.
So
Uh,
third in goaltending, first in defense, third in forwards.
yeah. Let's see. Sweet agrees.
Coaching, Mike's got a good question. Coaching,
Coaching.
first in coaching. I would put him first in coaching.
Even above Paul Maurice.
Yeah. I
Okay.
don't. I'm assuming by coaching, Mike doesn't mean just head coaching.
Which is a fair point. I will say that. That's a fair point. Um, let's see.
Because if it's just head coaching, I would say third then.
Yeah, just in head coach, I would probably go third as well. But overall coaching staff, I would agree with you there.
First.
Uh, Bruins Meat says depends on which Bobrovsky you get. Yeah, but the tandem with Spencer Knight, he seems like he was kind of reconfigured himself and found what he's been looking for. So I get it. Kevin says, this is why I shake my head when I see Bruins fans try and tell me Swayman is elite and deserves some massive deal. I say, based on what exactly? Exactly. Let's see. Curious Browser says Swayman had a .752 high danger unblocked shot attempt save percentage, 34th amongst goalies with a minimum of 25 games per the hockey guide. Okay. Let's see. Bruins Meat says I thought he was splitting starts with Pekka. So Pekka Rinne was there, but he had Kevin Lankinen backing him up for a while. It wasn't until let's see here in 2019 Saros was 24 and he had 40 starts. It was 21-22 when he was 26 years old, when he went from 36 starts the year before to 67, 64, 64. And in that first year that he started 67 games, he was third in Vezina voting. The following year, fourth, and last year, fifth. Now, he placed sixth in Vezina voting a year prior when he was 25 years old and he started 35 games. But I think that was the last year of Rinne being in Nashville. Way to discern on the coaching bit.
Metal, yellow, first, red.
I think it's
I don't
supposed to
get it.
be emoji that just didn't type the emoji.
Uh,
Maybe he can clarify. Anyway, let's see. Now Mike says, if no Swayman for the season, should the Bruins trade for another goalie if Bussy or DiPietro are not, I'm guessing, ready?
yes.
Yeah. I mean, the question is going to be who's available, but that's a different question. First, you got to get through camp too, because if it looks like it's going to go that route, you can also look at the waiver wire.
Mm-hmm.
Again, as you said, they're going to look for a goaltender that after conversations with Bob Asenza and Mike Dunham, they see something there, something that they feel like they can correct and work out of their game. There's going to be guys that get dropped. And if they're not ready, then obviously Bussy and DiPietro will end up down in Providence. So what's going on? Says Sweeney said if guys can't keep up, they won't play. Yeah. And there's enough competition for that to be true. I don't think any of the guys that we've talked about, I don't think any of them they're worried about losing on waivers if they get beat out for a job.
I don't think so.
Anyone today that could be dropped this far? Not yet. I mean, I think, if you had to get rosters down by the end of, by Wednesday of next week, there are guys that you'd probably be sending to Providence, but I don't think there's anybody that has been so horrendous that they've lost a job. You just need to see more of what they're building up to.
Oh, David's got a good question.
I will come right back to it. Bruin, I want to get a couple of these real quick. The new guy, I can't get his name right, Kaskasuo. You could always sign him to a contract. I think he's still more that what you would call in baseball.
He's an AHL. He's an AHLer.
Yeah. Kevin says, but Bruins fans told me Bussy is 100% NHL ready, and that's why we didn't need Korpisalo. So that's a good point, Kevin. Let's see. Bob M. is
I always listen to what the fans say. I take my advice from them. As we're talking here, I'm searching all these chat boards to look for the right answers and what I want to say when Chris asks the question.
Of course.
Because that's where I go for the answers.
You don't go to the Spitting Up on Yourself podcast?
No.
No,
I go on the Shit on Myself podcast.
Let's see. Pull up David's question. But which team besides the Bruins are you most interested in watching?
Utah Hockey Club. Utah Hockey Club.
Yeah, Bruins Meat says the same. They are going to be very interesting to watch for sure. Especially because all the pomp and circumstance being the first team or first year for the team. Overall, I think a very fun team to watch this year is going to be Dallas. Because they're working some other young guys in, Logan Stankoven, Maverick Bork, Harley on defense. They're going to be fun to watch. I mean, there's reasons to watch every team. But if there's another team in the Atlantic that I'd want to keep an eye on too, I think Tampa Bay is.
For me, it's Montreal. If the Atlantic, it's Montreal.
The reason why I say Tampa Bay is because I want to see how they are without Stamkos, with the addition of Gensel, and with the leadership turned over officially to Hedman. I'm not thrilled with how their bottom six in particular look in the forward group, and that defense has gotten punctured at best. Is the best way to put it. Losing Sergachev, bringing in McDonough, I'm not sure how all that's going to hold up. However, Andrei Vasilevsky is going to come out with his hair on fire after last year. So I want to see how that all plays together, because that's a team that I could see finishing as high as first in the division if everybody in the bottom six and all the defense holds up, all the way down to like sixth. Such a range. Let's see what's going on. Says Buffalo for him, coaching, checking lines, and newbies entering the lineup. And Kevin says he's a huge Stankoven fan. Was hoping the Bruins drafted him that year. Loved his game. I mean, he's a short fella, but that dude has got it. Bruins Meat says Ottawa would be my second. Will Allmark play God mode? Again, there's going to be a lot of reason to watch around the NHL. And I'm looking forward to it because there's going to be a lot that we're going to have that we can talk about, especially the Bruins. Like I said, Providence, check out the AHL. Like, there's a lot to look forward to there. Matrix likes your shit on myself podcast joke. So,
Of course, I thought it was funny.
I liked it.
I made a tweet. I got to say this. I made a tweet last night. I can't believe the number of people that it went over their head. Then they missed it. Basically, I said, Corpusalo looked good heading to the bench heading to the room after the first period. Last year in Ottawa, he would have tripped over the blue line.
Yes.
And the number of people that didn't get the joke and were commenting, I was shocked. I was shocked, and I thought, English is my third language, and it really, really is. I mean, I learned Italian first, French second, and English third. And always spoke Italian growing up, French in school, and I thought maybe I didn't say it right. And then I asked a couple of people. I said, no, we got it. So
Matrix says, didn't trip on the blue line. I agree with Mike here. He says the Atlantic will be physical. I think there's going to be a lot of physical divisions this year. TB9, would you take Matt Murray on waivers?
No.
No. That is a no from me, dog. Mike says, I think the Habs-Bruins rivalry will be back this year. I'm not quite ready
Not
to
this year, then next.
The Habs, I think, are a year away from being a year away. I think they still got. I mean, Lane Hudson looks great. This is going to be a crucial year. Once they get through this year, next year the conversation is it this year or do they need one more year? That's the conversation we're going to be having about the Canadiens next year. Swede says that Vasi's best days are behind him. My question to you is, where's the proof in that? Where has he started to fall off? Because last year, off of back surgery, he still started 52 games, and he still won 30 of them. His save percentage was still 900 or better, and his goals against average was still sub 3. So where is the evidence that his game is dropping off? Was last year one of the worst that he's had so far? Well, yeah, when you drop from a 265 the year before to a 290 goals against, you lose 0.015 in your save percentage. You lose 4 extra games over 8 less starts. I guess you could say his game is dipping.
Let's talk the difference between a goals against average of 265 and 295. That's a goal every 3 point. That's one goal against every 3.3 games. So every 10 periods of hockey.
So one goal every 10 periods that he's played, he's dropped down. And again, that's after recovering from the back surgery. So coming in fully healthy this year, probably in a little bit better shape, because if you have to have back surgery, I can't imagine that your off-season training was as productive as you would have liked it to have been. I honestly would sit here and tell you Vasilevsky Vezina finalist, book it.
You wouldn't get an argument from me.
Bruins Meat says Hedman may be on the decline, but Vasi's still on top. I don't think they think he's declining if they just gave him a 4-year extension. This is what I mean when I say Tampa is going to be super interesting to watch this year. Because not only do you have the Hedman question, the Vasilevsky question. Again, Who knows what the back surgery did to him? Are his better days behind him? Maybe, but I don't think so. He still looked pretty damn good at the end of last year. He wasn't the reason they got knocked out of the playoffs, that's for sure. Then you've lost Stamkos, your heart and soul of the team. You lost Sergachev, who was supposed to be a defensive stalwart for the next 7 years of your franchise. So, like, how does that whole thing worry or change? Mike asks, are you worried about Marchand playing in Four Nations tournament? It'll make for a long season.
No. It's what, at the most 5 extra games?
Yeah, if I to say that I'm worried about him playing in that, like, oh, what's my big worry? Is he going to get hurt? Well, he could get hurt stepping out on the ice tomorrow. Shit, I could get hit. I could, trip down the stairs tomorrow. Like, if you're going to live in a world of worry, then see a therapist.
And do they have a bye week?
I believe so. I believe the bye week is still part of the CBA.
But is it the week before or the week after the tournament?
I don't know. Let me try and pull that up. I don't even know what dates the tournament is off the top of my head, but I'm going to pull up the Bruins schedule.
February, isn't it?
I thought so. October, November, December, January, they play the full month. February, there's a bye week from the 9th to the 15th. The Bruins don't play they play a game on Saturday, February 8th, and their next game is Saturday, February 22nd.
So their bye week is the week before the tournament.
Yeah, and both of those games for the Bruins, by the way, are home. So they will have a little bit of an edge there. They have Vegas coming to town on the 8th, and the Ducks coming to town on the 22nd, and then 2 days off before the Maple Leafs come to town.
Okay, don't give us the whole schedule, Chris. Let's get back to the answering the question. No, not worried.
Rest. Wow, they have one away game all of February. Sorry.
I answered. Are you going to answer?
I said, no, I'm not worried.
Why? I gave a reason. You didn't.
I same reason. There's plenty of rest. It's I don't know. There's just not much to worry about for a couple extra games. If they were adding in a month-long tournament in the middle of the season, then yeah, maybe I'd worry about it. But we're talking, like you said, 4 or 5 games over a course of 2 weeks that they're off.
Not worried about it.
During a month where they're not traveling at all.
One game.
I'm good.
One game, you said. Under my thumb. I wish there was a song that was under my skin because I'd be singing it to you right now.
Anyway, as we wrap up, I want to give people a chance to write in any last-minute questions, comments, thoughts. It is already approaching 8 o'clock. I can't believe that. Now, which one is he telling to calm down, me or you?
Oh, I don't know. You're the big guy. I'm the little guy.
As these last thoughts come in, we'll fly through them in a minute. I do want we do have an announcement for both of the shows because they do work, I think, very well together, and they will throughout the season if you haven't seen it. But Dom and I have been discussing some details on what else we can bring to you guys as our viewers and listeners. So we have actually come up with a Patreon. You can see the link here. It's www.patreon.com/whatsbruin, where we will have additional content that we will produce throughout the season. There are multiple different layers and levels for which you can sign up for, depending on how much you want to commit. We will let you make that decision. But we want to be able to bring more content to you guys, more of our opinions, more of our analysis, all that type of stuff. So there's some options in there with some giveaways. There's some options in there where you can actually sit down with the two of us and ask us your questions in a similar fashion to how he and I are sitting here right now. So I encourage everyone. I will send that out. It will be in the podcast links as well. We will send it out on Twitter, but we want to do more for you. So Kevin says, get Dom in a dress for an episode. He might be wearing
If
one now, for all you know, Kevin, because you only see him from here down. Isn't that a wonderful Bruins hoodie dress?
it's my Bruins dress.
There you go.
And
And I got mine on too.
look what I have back there just for Kevin.
Oh yes, I
He
got to
likes
work on my blank wall space.
he likes that middle jersey.
I will tell folks I do have. I'll show it or send a photo out, but I do have a jersey for a giveaway item. So we will be doing giveaways. A couple other things that I already have, depending on how many people sign up, that prize could jack up in value. So hopefully we see a lot of you guys over there. Appreciate that, David. There says looking sharp. Kevin likes the jacket, calls it snazzy.
And just to add to what Chris is saying, Tuesday's show will not change. Neither will Sunday's show. It'll stay the same.
Yep.
Tuesdays may move to Mondays if there's a Bruins game on Tuesday night. Those two shows are will always be here as long as I'm alive. Um, and I think that was it, right, Chris?
Yeah, I mean this is all stuff that's in additional to what you get on the Sunday
Right.
shows. So I want to make that clear. It's these shows aren't going away. Appreciate you pointing that out. Um, Again, there's going to be some extra analysis throughout the season that we'll offer. We've actually had some requests for certain stuff that we want to make available. So check it out. Feel free to sign up for whichever value you find to be best suited for what content you're looking for and that sort of thing. Let's see what's going on. Says any surprises on D or forward thus far at camp and preseason games enough to force a regular out? Simply put, no, not yet.
No.
And then David says contract extension. Would you extend Brown, Brazeau, Frederick?
Right now, Frederick.
I was going to say right now, Freddie is the only one on the list that I would extend. However, that can change based on this year. So.
I just want to remind everybody Sunday night at 6:30, we have Josh Bell on the show. That's our Bruins prospect talk. He is the director of video scouting for McKean's Hockey. They recently, what was it, Chris? September 12th, I believe it was, released their top Boston Bruins prospects. Dean Letourneau is on the list. So he will be joining us Sunday at 6:30 live. You can find us live on X or on YouTube or on Twitch. And we'll go through his list and what he thinks of the Bruins prospects.
And I'm looking forward to that one. And as Kevin, he says, appreciate the show. And then he says, enjoy the game tomorrow. So, you know what? We can officially say during the preseason,